Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Heather Heuman, author of The Golden Rules of Social Media Marketing. Heather, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would say to build curiosity and bring your audience, or at least the people who love you, along on that journey while you're actually writing it. I think too many people don't do that, and they just all of a sudden show up and they're just like, here's my book. And they have really left out, and what I think is just really missed a chance to bring their audience with them along on that journey.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
For me, it was the editing process. So I did do a self-publishing of my book, but I ultimately did hire and have a company that pretty much helped me be able to do that. And I had them, of course, help me with the editing of the book. But sometimes when you are writing a book, and this was my first time, I felt like the banter or the back and the forth of the emails of here's corrections, and you're trusting someone else's judgment, and yet you're trying to say, I want to hear the advice of what they have to say, but at the end of the day, it's going to be my book. It's going to be my name that's on the book. And so even though they may have suggestions to maybe leave certain content out, maybe if their reasoning doesn't align with what you think is solid and what makes sense for you, I just found that process to maybe be more difficult than I actually thought it was going to be. But I feel like I'm more well versed in the process on what that might look like to go about if and when I'm doing another book.
Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Yeah, so I personally kind of a little bit of this is piggybacking off of what I said regarding bring your audience along on your journey. But I have found that when you do that if you've got an email list, if you have a social media following, and if you are really building up towards what that launch date is, for you to be building that up and be building that excitement. So then when you are ready to go and you're like, now it's up or it's on Amazon or here's how you can get it, that you've got a lot of people that are really excited to be on that journey with you at the beginning. And then kind of the second part of that, Paul, is this idea of looking at your book and saying to yourself, of course, I had a nonfiction book about social media marketing. And so I had a lot of examples throughout my book where I really wanted people to say, hey, I didn't just Google social media yesterday and wrote this book. And here's some credible resources beyond me just telling you that this is effective. And so I have found in the marketing of the book to literally get great photos of the people that I'm spotlighting and then make some of my marketing materials, especially on social media, leveraging those people, or in my case, those businesses that I'm spotlighting, because who doesn't like to see that they, one, are featured in a book, and then two, that there's someone positively talking about success that they've had. And then I found that to almost give me some social ambassadors for my book while I'm in the process of marketing it.
Yeah, and that is a brilliant strategy. We actually had, I believe it was Dave Ramos on the show. I think it was episode 523, if I remember off the top of my head. And the reason I bring that up is he used a similar strategy where he was spotlighting businesses. And then the funny thing is, these businesses, when he published the book, many of them wanted to buy his book in bulk to share with their employees. So did you find that happened with yours as well?
I have found that have happened with a couple of my clients. So some of the people that I was featuring were a little bit more so on the solopreneur or smaller side. But interestingly enough, even those that were smaller, they were maybe not buying them in bulk, as in like 10 books or a large quantity, but they were getting like a book for themselves, or they're getting a book for their mom. Because for most of the people that I was featuring in my book, they just kept saying over and over, I've never been in a book before. Like,
Yep.
this is super cool. And so they wanted a book for themselves, and they were using it to either have at their business and to say like, hey, look at this. And so I found it to kind of be cool that I was able to be a part of their journey to help them be amplified.
Well, a nice thing too is they become your best ambassadors, as you mentioned. They're promoting it on social media. They're, as you say, you have maybe a picture with them with the book. I mean, there's a lot of different strategies that you can utilize where it just multiplies your reach.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like, and especially when you're doing it in a genuine place of saying like, hey, I'm not just doing this for anybody. The people that are in here, they did the work. They implemented the strategies that I teach. And so they're happy because one, their business is more successful. And then two, they love that even just in my process of marketing the book, I'm still months later, as we are putting these materials out, we're still tagging their business pages and we're still giving them shout outs on social. And so it's ultimately a great cycle that keeps on giving, and it's serving them well, and it's helping us feel good that we're kind of really spotlighting others that are having success.
Well, and the great thing too is you're spotlighting businesses as those case studies in there to just show how it's a win-win.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
Paul, I am a firm believer in sometimes there's always something new that's out there. There's a new trendy topic. But for me, when I hear your question, I always just go back to me being the Bible is my favorite book. And I would say the reason why I say that is because I feel that it's timeless. It applies to me just as a wife, as a mom, a business owner in life. And I can read the same parts of it over and over and just get new applications in my life just as I go through different seasons.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
Okay, so a favorite quote I have and love is by John D. Rockefeller. And he says, if you want to succeed, you should strike out on new paths rather than travel the worn paths of accepted success. And I feel that the reason that resonates with me, maybe as an entrepreneur, maybe as someone that looks around and sees a lot of my friends that I went to college with, and I'm kind of doing this whole business owner entrepreneur journey, and they are all maybe still teachers and flight attendants and kind of doing what they were pursuing, is I just feel that when we lean into what we're really good at, what we're really excellent at, and we are willing to put ourselves out there, then it makes it a little easier to be willing to just try to create those new paths and to say it's okay if I'm not going out there doing what looks like everyone else is doing, and just being okay with it and knowing that, yes, success can happen when you go out to kind of doing your own thing.
Well, Heather, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
Yeah, the best place would be my website, which is sweetteasocialmarketing.com. And if you are active on social media, as much as I love to be there, Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter are places I love. And you can find me simply by my first and last name all together, Heather Heuman.
Heather, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.